The learning hole on Lyrian Reach wasn't much to look at, but Annabelle called it home anyway. Not because of its size or anything fancy, just the warmth you feel when you're part of something real. She'd been with the Keleth for cycles. Now, people used to shudder at the mention of their name. The Keleth had a reputation to destroy as monsters with too many eyes and hands strong enough to break stone. They used to end wars before they even started. Now, those same hands fumbled with chalk slates, flipped through battered pages, shot up in the air not to demand, but to ask. Anna came here to teach them language and math. Somewhere in the middle of all that, she figured out what it meant to belong her. Days always started the same way. Sunlight poured in through those tall crystal windows, gold and soft, warming the curved floor under her feet. The Keleth kids sat in a big circle, skin colors shifting blue for curiosity, bright green when they got excited. Ina sat with them, not above them, legs crossed, voice steady. Today's lesson was patterns, just simple ones. Cause, effect, cause again. The kids leaned in, eyes huge, sometimes finishing her sentences before she could. They cracked up at their own mistakes. They corrected each other, beaming with pride. Monsters. No way. These were just kids, sharp, restless, very much alive. Some mornings the elders would watch from the upper arches, always quiet, always still. They remembered the old days, how their hands used to be stained red, how cities crumbled, how the universe learned to fear the sound of their name. And still, here they were. They chose this. They put their hope in a sunlit room and a human teacher who smiled too much and believed too hard. Aina knew what she was risking. Everyone did. Peace wasn't about forgetting. It was a choice you made, over and over. The Keleth young had never fought, never hunted. Their lessons were stories, symbols, shared bread, music that rumbled through the walls like a heartbeat. They learned patience. They learned to hold back, to see that real strength didn't always need to shout. Aina loved the way their eyes lit up when she talked about distant worlds, about people solving problems together, about how learning could change everything. She loved that they believed her. That's who they were now. But history, well, it remembers. It always does. The warning came out of nowhere, a strange heaviness in the air, the light flickering for half a second. The eldest tensed up. Aina felt it before her brain caught up. That's how fear works. It gets to your body first. The room went quiet. All the kids turned to her, not to the elders. To her, Aina stood, heart thumping. She didn't know who was coming, just that they meant trouble. The Vorowan didn't bother with introductions. They never did. To them, the Keleth could never change. Peace was a joke, and every Keleth kid was just a future enemy. They moved through the halls like they owned the place, calm, cruel, sure of themselves. They'd come to wipe out a mistake. That mistake was happening right here. Anna tried to keep her hands steady as she gathered the kids, urging them toward the inner chamber. Her voice stayed soft, steady, the way it always was. The kids hesitated. Some old memory flickered in their body sphere. Confusion. Ciro, the oldest, barely 12 cycles, looked up and caught Aina's eye. Fear there, yes, but trust too, Goiana said. You know this lesson. Ciro nodded and made a quiet sound, something only her people understood. The younger ones followed, sticking close, moving exactly as they'd practiced. Aina turned, stood between them and the danger coming closer. She wasn't a fighter. Never had been, but she knew one thing: every second counted. The Vorowan stormed in, bigger, heavier, their presence like a thundercloud. They talked about fate, about how things had to end. Anna just said no. She stood there, shaking, voice cracking, but she wouldn't step aside. The pain was fast. A blow dropped her to the floor, blood in her mouth. Still, she dragged herself back, blocking the way with her body. She heard the chamber seal. Sarah's voice, sharp with fear. Anna screamed at her too. Stay hidden. This wasn't their fight. They shouldn't have to bear it. But Ciro didn't listen. The chamber opened. The children stepped out. Together, they didn't scream, didn't cry either. Just stood there, small and steady, eyes locked on the strangers in their hall. The air felt different, thicker, sharper, like something big was about to happen. Ciro moved up beside Anna. Her colors shifted, growing deeper. Not out of anger, but out of something older, something hidden. The sound Ciro made. That wasn't fear, it was memory. It rolled through the hall, through bone and thought, through every story the Varua never whispered to themselves before sleep. The other kids joined her. The lights dimmed. Eldest gasped. This wasn't violence. It was presence. A reminder of who the Keleth once were and what they still could be, if pushed. The Voron backed away. Then they ran. They didn't flee claws or fists. They ran from the promise standing there. From children raised in peace, linked to humanity, who knew how to hold back and when to show real strength. The Varuan left behind their certainty, their mission, their pride. Silence settled in. Aina survived. She healed, slow but steady, surrounded by small hands and gentle voices. She lived to see those children grow up not into destroyers, but into leaders who understood what fear really cost. The alliance held, peace lasted, the Voron never came back. Some lessons stick forever. Years later, the hall in Lyrian Reach had grown bigger, brighter, filled with voices that sounded sure, not scared. Aina moved slowly now, careful steps, hair streaked with silver, but her smile hadn't changed. The children weren't small anymore. They stood tall, their colors calm and strong. They spoke quietly, even when they disagreed. They listened. That told Aina she'd done her job. Sarah stood in the center, teaching a new group of kids. Her voice was steady, patient, warm. She talked about patterns, choices, consequences, the same things Anna once taught her. The elders didn't just watch anymore, they stood proud. The Keleth weren't only remembered for who they'd been. Now people knew them for restraint, for wisdom, for the day they chose not to destroy, even when they could have. Stories of the Vorahan retreats spread far and wide. Not as some epic battle, not as war. More like a warning. The Voran saw something that day. No weapon could erase a future you couldn't scare into submission. Kids who understood peace and power, and when to use neither. Anna stopped at the door, listening to the lesson go on without her. She didn't feel sad, only peaceful. The kind you earn by standing your ground when running would have been easier. She'd protected them once. Now they were protecting the future. Outside, the stars burned quietly, and somewhere, far away, old enemies remembered a sound they would never forget. Anna left the hall and stepped into the quiet corridor, running, her hand along the wall as she walked. The station hummed, steady and alive, nothing like it was on that terrible day. She paused by a window, staring out at the stars. They felt closer now, less cold. She wondered how many futures had changed, just because a few children refused to hide. Behind her, laughter drifted out. Not loud or wild, just warm, the kind of laughter that means you're safe, that tomorrow's coming. Aina closed her eyes, breathed it in. This was why she'd stayed. Why she stood her ground when fear told her to run. The Keleth would always remember who they were, but they wouldn't let it rule them again. Their children grew up with stories about that day, not as a tale of violence, but of choice. A moment when power bowed to compassion, and strength answered to love. Far away, across the stars, the Vorawan taught their young to listen for silence, to fear holes where children stood without screaming, to remember that some species don't. We need to fight to win. And on Lyrian Reach, the lessons kept going. Numbers, language, history, hope. Once, a teacher stood alone so children could stand together. That's how legends start. Time kept rolling on, dragging the story with it, but never letting it disappear. Ships arrived and left. New alliances popped up. Trouble flared somewhere out in the galaxy. Still, Lyrian Reach stayed the same at heart. People didn't talk about it as some fortress anymore, some grim warning. Now it was a place to learn, a spot where folks faced the past squarely and tried to shape what came next with real care. Travelers told stories about the Keleth leaders. They'd say these leaders listened first, spoke after. They picked patience over force. They carried this old, quiet strength, like a storm sleeping just beneath the surface. One they never wanted to unleash, no matter who told the story. One moment always sat at the center. People lowered their voices when they spoke about it, almost like it was sacred. When fear came for their children, a human teacher stood her ground. The children didn't answer with anger or violence. They stepped forward together, united. That changed everything. It showed that peace wasn't weakness, innocence didn't mean helpless, and real bonds didn't come from fighting. They grew out of care. Even after the scars faded and the old enemy's name slipped away, that choice stuck around. You could feel it in every lesson, every child watched over, every future that dared to hope for something better.